How is it going, everybody? This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. So, if you got any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know the politics can be really confusing, especially these days, and so it's difficult to figure out exactly what's going on and, what the government is up to, etc. So, you can use this show as a place to ask all those questions and try to get clarity on what's happening in the government and in the country and finding reliable sources. And even if you just have a really simple question about, like the way that the government works, what's the difference between state senators and federal senators, what's reconciliation, what do these different three-letter agencies do, who is Kash Patel, who's Dan Bongino. These are all completely valid questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question. I am just here to answer all good faith questions. And this is not a show for fighting. This is not a show where I call people up to be on the live stream and then I yell at them for having different political opinions than me. This is not a show for people to debate each other and try to own each other and try to fight with each other. This is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. I am guilty of getting spicy with some people in the comments if they get spicy at me, but normally I just try to keep the temperature down and have a nice, productive conversations about politics and to, help people out who want to get more educated or involved. If you got questions about activism, that is also something you can bring up here on the live stream. Persephone DK says, "How did we end up with two conservative parties?" So I would not describe the Democratic Party as a conservative party. There are definitely more conservative members. There are some conservative members of the Democratic Party, but I think that's kind of the point. Like the Democratic Party is supposed to be a big tent. But as far as like why the Democratic Party sometimes legislates as a more conservative version of a left-leaning party than maybe you might see in Europe is because for 12 years, starting in 1980, the Democratic Party got their asses kicked by the Republican Party. And so they took that to mean that America wanted the Democratic Party to be more like the Republican Party. And so they started doing that. They sort of like developed this business friendly neoliberal philosophy, and it worked. Clinton won in 92, and he had, full government control of the House and the Senate because of that. And so, yeah, if we did not consistently reward the Republican Party with electoral victories and did not consistently, re-elect more conservative Democrats in their primary elections, then we would not have as conservative of a Democratic Party. Dan Blackroot, excellent to see you again. Let's see here. How does a bill become a permanently stalled piece of legislation by obstructionist Republicans? That's an excellent question. So there's this mechanism by which the Senate can uh, permanently hold up any kind of legislation that they don't like, that they don't want to vote on, called the filibuster. And it used to be that the filibuster was a hard thing to do. You would have to stand up and talk in front of people, and you wouldn't be able to sit down or anything like that. You just have to talk the entire time. And when you were too tired to do that anymore, then you would have to end your filibuster, and Senate business could continue as per usual. But that changed I believe, in 2008 ish, I believe, is when the rule changed, where you don't actually have to do that anymore. You just have to email somebody to say, "Hey, I'm filibustering that bill," and then so there's no more talking, there's no more standing on your feet. So it is a lot easier to completely stall any piece of legislation. Persephone DK says, "Oh, they are conservative. AOC and Bernie are centrist at best." That is a wild thing to say, Persephone. I would encourage you not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. AOC and Bernie Sanders are great, and they are not centrists. So whatever criticism you have of them that makes them a centrist, I think you're just being a little bit too picky and a little bit too hyperbolic to say that this one thing, it's very purity politics coded to say that AOC and Bernie are centrist at best. Saint Woozy says, "Is it all cooked?" It's cooked if people like me and you don't do the work of not making it, of making it uncooked. Saint Woozy. The nice thing about America is that if people like me and you do a ton of work, then we can uncook things that are currently cooked. Badger75 says, "Do you support Bernie Sanders?" Yeah, I like Bernie. I like him. Yeah, you know. Huey Doe says this guy simps for criminals. Do you mean like the 1600 January 6th criminals that Trump pardons that then went on to do like worse crimes like child abuse and PDF file shits? Is that what you're talking about, Huey Doe? Because no, I do not. All right. Dan Blackbird says, gee, I wonder if anything else happened in 2008. Yeah, potentially. Joey Mark says, the state has monopoly on violence. That is accurate. Joey Mark says, she's right there, controlled opposition. They are not controlled opposition. I do not buy the uniparty theory one tick. It's a little too easy. It does service for the Republican Party, you know? Like, what do you accomplish by saying that the Democratic Party is just, what's the word that you guys used? Controlled opposition. You are you are not electing more Democrats then because you feel like both parties are the same, because you feel like there's no difference between the two of them. So you elect a bunch of Republicans and then things get noticeably worse. Like, who are you helping with that narrative, you know? Burberry 916 says, why are most comedians liberals? I think most people in the arts tend to be liberals because in order to do art, you need to, kind of like expand your reach for how you view the world, and you need to think about how other life in other people's shoes and have more radical empathy and stuff like that. And I have a lot of empathy for people that are not left leaning like myself, but there are studies about this sort of thing, and we know that people that tend to vote for Republicans are less capable of the kinds of empathy and sympathy that we see in the arts communities. The Honest Dad says the Democratic Party is done. It's time for new parties. I don't believe that it would be a lot easier to just change the Democratic Party than to create a new party. The Honest Dad. If we just voted in the primary for better Democrats, then we wouldn't need to have a new party. Let's see here. Joey Marks says zero class analysis on this lib. What a weird thing to say, Joey Marks. Liberalism is a center-right ideology at best. Yeah, so you're not asking questions, Joey. I do not truck with that sort of thing. I don't care if you want to disagree with me, but actually ask a question, be part of the conversation. Don't just spam the comments. J4 says, in your opinion, how do we solve the Supreme Court tampering corruption? The easiest solution would be to flood the government with Democratic politicians, with replacing Republicans with Democrats. We can either add seats, or if we get enough Democrats in the Senate, we can actually impeach justices that we believe have done impeachable offenses. Nove says, why did Joe Biden pardon Fauci? Because the Trump administration was threatening to use the power of the judiciary to go after Trump's perceived enemies. And we are seeing that play out right now. We are seeing the FBI and the Justice Department starting sham investigations into people that Trump just doesn't like. And so it was kind of the move to do it, Gino says, why is Israel terrorizing the world? Because they have a far right-wing prime minister named Benjamin Netanyahu who has extreme ideologies of expanding Israel's borders and, eliminating all of their neighbors. Z Gardaday, hope you're having a good day as well. Red Lord says, how does mass migration affect the supply and demand of labor? Red Lord, this feels to me like a justification for ending immigration so that we can raise wages here in America. But what ends up happening is that there are just jobs that don't get done. Right now, the economy is structured in such a way where the rich have everything, the billionaire class has everything, and everybody else is struggling. So, maybe, somebody who owns a farm who is barely making a living as it is decides to hire somebody who will work for less money because that's all that they can afford to pay for. When those small farms go kaput, then all we have are the large monopolized farms, and they don't really give a shit about actually picking their crops. You could all starve to death for all they fucking care, So yeah, I don't really buy that argument one tick. If a dearth of people to employ increased wages, we would be seeing that already. Flamingo Mo says, I have empathy for the farmers who voted for DJT, but still feel that they must be held accountable. I mean, I'm hoping that they connect the dots, but I also don't think that pointing and laughing at them and saying that this is what you voted for is productive. We should be giving people what Anand Giridharadas calls the golden parachute of letting them find out that they were wrong without rubbing it in their faces, you know? It's the Rocketeer says, I'm up in WeHo. Where can I find a non-bougie coffee shop that supports local businesses? I have no idea. It's the Rocketeer. I am not a coffee drinker, and I also, one of my flaws as a human being is that I love bougie coffee shops. Right. Emotional damage says true, but they still support him. Well, then lead them. Lead them out of the darkness. Kathy says, when they have control, they'll stop feeding us. 100%. Right. Let's see here. Lucas P says, is the two-party system a detriment to our society? Lucas P, I think that it's a little hyperbolic to blame all problems in our government and country on the two-party system. I think that there are flaws with the two-party system, but honestly, most of the issues that we have with the government are not the fault of the two-party system. They're the fault of the Republican Party, and we can get more into that if you like. Flamingo Mo says, you don't drink coffee? How do you live? I mean, if I drank coffee, I would die. It gives me crazy acid reflux. Sauce Boss says, what do you think about the Trump letter to the guy with the island? I mean, I and many people have more than enough evidence. We have more than enough evidence without that letter that those two were really good buddies and did all of that gross shit together. It seems pretty clear to me. There is a substantive amount of, what's the word I'm looking for? Circumstantial evidence to suggest that the two of them were party to the exact same kinds of illegal activities that landed the fellow at the island in jail in the first place. So I don't need the letter. The people who are going to be swayed by the letter, I'm sure they are out there. The MAGA crowd is not going to be swayed by the letter. Charlie Kirk is already saying that it's fake, which is just like, who the fuck, why would anybody listen to that fucking guy? Do you know what I mean? Mao says, thoughts on central banking and if we should pursue sound money. I'm not really sure what you mean by sound money. And I do think that there is value to government-run banking because you kind of remove the profit motive from the system, which the profit motive tends to be very corrupting, where people just want a place where they can do their banking that is not funding G sides and shit like that. That girl says we need no letter. The lies 47 tells are self-evident. I completely agree with that girl, and you used the wrong R in that sentence. Ryan Little says, if Trump was on it, they would have leaked him when they were trying to keep him out of office. Ryan Little, so that's not a persuasive argument because the Biden administration and Democrats were trying to release this information during the Biden administration. There were three times that Ro Khanna says the Democrats made a play to release this information. One in 2019, one in 2020, and one in 2023, I believe. And the Trump Supreme Court and Trump judges and the FBI were running cover for Trump, That girl says, I'm talking to tech, so forgive. Yeah, of course, that girl. No hate, no tea, no shade, just pointing it out. Mao says, sound money is money backed by something other than promises. Yeah, that's not really my expertise, but it sounds pretty solid to me. Lobonez 900 says, this is all a lie. Can you tell me one thing that I have said, Lobonez, that you think is inaccurate? Emotional damage says, private equity is taking over veterinary clinics. Yeah, they're ruining everything. Private equity is literally ruining everything. It's what we call the enshittification of everything. Hail German Jeff says, serious question. Do you think ISIS was made because of Obama and Hillary when she was Secretary of State? No, I do not. There is, I believe, the dots. If you connect the dots, it is the Bush administration that created ISIS through their disastrous Middle East policy and starting a whole bunch of wars in the Middle East that went on for a couple of decades, Robert Bob says, so you're obviously against Donald Trump no matter what. No matter what. I think you mean no matter what. No, if Donald Trump did good things, I would not be against Donald Trump. The reason why I'm against Donald Trump is not because I have some sort of obsequious objection to him. It is because he has done a lot of very terrible shit. He's hurt a lot of people. He is wildly corrupt. He is a pathological liar. He's fucking world record owning of a number of lies and size of lies told. I don't really buy this whole Trump derangement, the shit. If somebody came into your house and just started destroying all your belongings with a bat, and that guy's name was Jeff, and then you yelled at him for destroying everything, would you say that the person yelling at him had Jeff derangement syndrome, or would you be like, wow, that guy's got some very legitimate critiques about Jeff's behavior, Alrighty, let's see here. Dylan says, let's go Trump. That's an example of the kind of comment that gets you blocked. I don't care if you're a Trump person. I don't care if you have different political beliefs than me, but actually ask a question, be part of the conversation, or you will get blocked. J4 says, RFK Jr., was he an FU hire or a distraction hire? I don't know. That's a really good question. I think it was the Trump administration, their base is the value of their base is that it is substanceless, that they believe things that have no credible evidence backing them up. So whether it is that vaccine caused autism, or that the COVID vaccine killed more people than it saved, or that the 2020 election was stolen, the Trump administration wants more of those people, and they want to cater to those people as well. So I think that's probably like the underlying motivation there. And RFK Jr. is a wildly inaccurate liar and extremely corruptible human being, and I think that that was attractive to Trump. That here was a guy that would just do what he told him to do. Judah says, "Isn't being a Christian Republican extremely hypocritical?" It is, but there are different sects of Christianity throughout America, and many of them have been tailored to allow for the exact same kind of, insular, racist, homophobic, anti-immigrant, pro-billionaire rhetoric that the Republican Party exists on. Nonia says, "You are clueless. Can you tell me one thing that you think I'm saying here, Nunya, that is inaccurate?" Cherry says, "What do you think about the military going back to Puerto Rico? PR? I didn't know the military was in PR at all, so I'm not really sure what you're referring to, Cherry." Wally After Dark says, "America does have a chronic health problem, though." It does, but I think that has largely to do with the fact that we don't fund health prevention, and probably has something to do with microplastics or shit like that. Let's see here. Mao says, "Have you heard about Surgery Center of Oklahoma? It's a pretty persuasive argument for private health." I have not heard of the Surgery Center of Oklahoma, and honestly, I have seen enough evidence. I've lived in America my whole life. I have been to countries with universal health care, and what we have here is complete and utter bullshit, and is worse. Brandon Anon says, "Democrats at the highest level have been selling the country to corporations, billionaires for decades." That is inaccurate, Brandon. The billionaire class is working hand in hand with the Republican Party to sell the country. And the Democratic Party has not been perfect on this issue, but they have been way better than the Republican Party. If you want me to go into more details on that, Brandon, I will. Yeah, just let me know. Badger75 says, "What do you think about Republican Congresswoman supporting the fellow with the island's victims?" I mean, I will give anybody their flowers for supporting the victims of the fellow with the island and standing up against the Trump administration to bring that information to light. I think anybody deserves their flowers, even people like, Marjorie Taylor Greene. While After Dark says, "Ultra-processed foods that no politician besides RFK has even begun to talk about." Yeah, but I don't know if RFK is actually doing anything about it. He talks, but he's full of shit. He's not doing anything to move America away from ultra-processed foods. Who did was fucking Michelle Obama, and everybody yelled at her for it. They said, "Man, fucking shut up, stop telling us what we have to fucking eat. Stupid, I hate you." That's what America said when she tried to get them to eat healthier. Everyone knows BD says, "Is Great Replacement real?" No, it is not. Brandon Anon says, "I agree the Republicans have been too and worse, but Democratic policies have exacerbated the wealth gap." So I don't agree with that at all, Brandon. I think what you're seeing is a Democratic Party that has been shackled by an obstructionist Republican Party and an electoral system that rewards Republicans and hurts the Democratic Party, and an information environment that helps the Republican Party and hurts the Democratic Party. So where the Democrats have been able to fight against the wealth gap, their efforts have been, watered down or shackled by the billionaire class, the Republican Party, electoral politics, things like that. But they have done things to try to help. It's just that the avalanche of shit that the Republican Party is able to accomplish because they have all of these systemic advantages, it's just been more than the Democratic Party has been able to reverse with the tiny amount of power that the American people give them for a very short amount of times. Dragon Sarm says, "Do you think the Dems should shut down the government?" So that's a very difficult question, and I want to make something extremely clear that that is a hard decision. That Democrats are stuck between a rock and a hard place. There is no good way out of this where the American people and the Democratic Party will win. It is just different levels of Trump and the Republican parties winning. And so I don't believe either narrative that the Democrats who vote for the shutdown are throwing the American people on the bus. And I don't believe the narrative that the Democrats that decide to compromise and avoid a shutdown are folding to the pressure of the Trump administration. Those are both bullshit. Both of the decisions are bad, and it is hard. It is hard to figure out which is the worst, which is the better of the two bad options. That being said, I think it might be time to allow the shutdown to happen. I think the American people have gotten a little too cozy with all of the shit the Trump administration is doing not affecting them. Maybe the American people need to feel more of the pain that the Trump administration is currently causing them. I think that there are some messaging advantages to the Democratic Party being stalwart on this, to calling attention to just how bananas, batshit insane it is that the Republican Party is allowing Trump to get away with everything that he's doing, with what ICE is doing. So yeah, I think I come down a little bit more on the side of the Democrats should shut down the government than on the side of people will get hurt if we allow that to happen. We'll be playing into Trump's hands if we allow that to happen. So we should compromise and get something out of the spending bill. Alrighty, Mao says, are you aware of certificate of need and licensing being stricter than in the EU? I am not aware of what that is, Mao. Let's see here. Jesse Dill says, how do you think liberals can/will take the conversation back to the actual platform that we stand for? So Jesse Dill, I don't know that the conversation, okay. There are a lot of different conversations happening around politics through, the various media channels and social media and the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, etc. I don't believe that the Democratic Party is complicit in directing the conversation away from the platform that we stand for. I believe that is other actors. And maybe there are people in the Democratic Party who are accidentally doing that or doing that on purpose, but I don't believe the Democratic Party is doing that en masse. And it's very difficult to track that. Like, you have to look at everything that every single elected member of the Democratic Party is currently saying in any various forum, and then track that. It's just vibes. It's just what do we feel like is happening. But we are also in control of the conversation. It is up to us to talk to people in real life and make sure that they are aware of what is happening, of what is important, of what is barbaric, of who the people that are responsible for ruining all of our lives and our environment and doing heinous shit in the name of this country that is supposed to be representing us, All right, scrolling down to the bottom. Wally After Dark says, Dev spent 4 years gaslighting the public that Biden was mentally competent until it was too obvious. That is inaccurate, Wally After Dark. Did you read Jake Tapper's book, Wally After Dark? Let me know in the comments if you read Jake Tapper's book about who knew that Biden was mentally incompetent and who did not know. Have you read the book yet, Wally After Dark? Let me know. Put it in the chat. Mr. Johnson says, it feels like the fellow with the island files is a distraction, even though it's probably very real that Trump is in them. I think that the Democratic Party is leaning into this because they know that Trump is complicit in that, and they know that this is something that is breaking through. The information environment is so captured by the billionaire class, the Republican Party, right-wing media, that it's very difficult for anything to get through, for anything to sort of attract the attention of the general public. And when the Democratic Party sees something that is going through and is damaging Trump and the Republican Party, they're learning their lesson. And they're like, all right, well, we need to ride this wave, because just trying to steer the conversation is not doing anything for us, because there's just too much money and power on the side that is working against us. So we need to take advantage of this moment. So yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a distraction. I would love it if things like, Trump destroying the economy and hurting people in poverty, in favor of helping the billionaire class. The terrible jobs numbers, the fact that price of living is continuing to go up, the fact that ICE is acting like his personal Gestapo and they're building concentration camps and treating people barbarically and unconstitutional. Like, I wish that was enough to get people on the right side of politics, but it seems to be that just talking about the dude with the island is the thing that's moving people. Wally After Dark says, I don't need to read a book. I lived through his presidency. LOL. Well, then you don't know. Wally After Dark. You don't know who knew what. Wally After Dark. You don't know that it was just 3 people that were hiding this from everybody, from every elected Democrat, from everybody at the DNC. So you're assuming that you know something, but you actually know nothing. Wally After Dark. J4 says, is it safe to assume that Dems are okay with outing their own who are in the Epstein files? 100%, absolutely, without question. We do not give a shit. Throw fucking all of them under the bus. I do not care. If they were there, to jail. Right to jail. Republican, Democrat, I don't give a fuck. All right, Emotional Damage says, Smart Elections, Election Truth Alliance. I'm waiting to see how the Rockland County case turns out. That, to me, is the only substantive evidence that I have seen that votes were potentially changed. Everything else that's like a statistical anomaly can and has been explained in other ways. And if you want more details on that, send me a DM or go to my Discord and send me a DM, and I will send you the relevant information because, as much as I would love to believe in just the statistical anomaly theory of it, you can argue the exact same thing on the other side as well. Dylan says, would you be in favor of cleaning up the streets of Chicago? Yeah, but not by sending the National Guard or the Marines there, because that is not what they are trained to do. It's a massive waste of money. It's dangerous. It's terrifying. It destroys businesses because people are too scared to leave their house. Wally After Dark says, it was so obvious that he was impaired, he had to drop out of the race, LOL. Yeah, I mean, when it became obvious that he was impaired, but for a long time, it was not obvious that he was impaired, Wally After Dark. Ask a question while After Dark, or I'm going to boot you, because I'm really tired of me telling you the facts about things. Like, I've done this research, and you haven't, and you're just going off of vibes. So either ask a question or leave, my guy. Alrighty, Flamingo Mo says, all I can say is men in power can all be disgusting. Party doesn't matter. Yeah, they can be. Not all of them are, but they definitely can be. All right, excellent live stream so far today, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your questions and engagement. It is you guys being here and asking questions that makes it possible for me to do this show. And I hope that you are all out there doing the work and recruiting people and, checking out my Discord where I have all the things that you can do and all the great organizations that you can join, because we need people. We need more people involved in this fight. All right, Greggy Poo says, do you find that the administration is controlling this app somehow with the new restrictions? I don't know what the TikTok higher ups are doing to appease the Trump administration. I have theories, but I don't really have any specific data on that. Until we can really prove that, I don't know how productive it is to be like, I think they're doing this, I think they're doing that, There's a reason why people say the fellow with the island and G-side and pew pews, like, people do see consequences to their videos depending on the content that goes in there, but I don't know. I don't know what the, I haven't seen the memo from the higher ups that says that, they are shadow banning any creators or anything like that. Wally After Dark says, how does the left wing win back young men? I mean, I think that we need to do the work, Wally After Dark, of telling young men what is actually going on and reaching out to them, The work of persuasion, the work of convincing is difficult. And I do not believe that the information environment exists to where, even if the Democratic Party had the most perfect messaging strategy, they would be able to break through all of the manipulation of social media and mainstream media and right-wing media. So I think it's up to us. I think it is up to us to communicate with people in real life, to talk to the young people that we know, make sure they're talking to the young people that they know, make sure that we are pulling people out of whatever propaganda, misinformation rabbit holes that they're living in. It's up to us. That's what the work is. Info Warrior says, why is the left not covering Irina the way they would a black man or woman. I think the bigger question, Info Warrior, is why isn't the right-wing media covering all of the January 6th insurrectionists who have been rearrested for child molestation and child abuse charges and PDF file shits? The people that Trump pardoned and let back onto the street, who then did other crimes, who did domestic abuse and shit like that. Let's see here. Tia Marie says Charlie Kirk was shot. Can anybody? Dayglow says reports are that Charlie Kirk was shot. Okay, let's not jump to conclusions. I'm seeing two people who are saying this, but that does not necessarily mean that it is accurate. So make sure everybody, let's take a breath and make sure that we are confirming things are accurate before we actually, repeat things. Everybody, all right? Right. So yeah, I'm not gonna get my news from people on TikTok, guys. So I know you guys are all saying that it's confirmed, but we still don't know until we see it on legitimate news sources. Alrighty. Let's see here. Info Warrior says, "Who are all these people?" Info Warrior, would you like me to link you to the information? All of the people that Donald Trump has pardoned, who then went on to do terrible, horrific crimes. Because I have that information available to you. I don't have it all memorized, but I do have it all in for you. I'm going to be honest with you, Info Warrior. I don't really think you care about data or facts or anything like that. I think that you want to bang the drum about a black guy who stabbed a white woman because you feel like it helps your political narrative. But prove me wrong, my guy. Prove me wrong. Engage with me. Send me a DM. Go to my Discord. I will send you the information. All right, scrolling down the bottom. Yes, respectfully, yes, J6ers, as you've stated. Yeah, send me a DM and I will happily send you that information. Info Warrior says, I'm telling you right here to do it. I do not just do what random people on the internet tell me to do. If you send me a DM, my DMs are open. If you email me through my website, if you go to my Discord, I will happily engage with you on this. But I do not have that information at my fingertips. Okay, will do. Thank you, Info Warrior. I appreciate that. Emotional Damage says, and the white South Africans, one got rid of his wife. Oh, how interesting. And aren't there cartel members as well that Donald Trump allowed into the country or some shit like that? Fletch Lives Again says, what do you think will come of releasing the PDF files? It's a really good question. I wonder if, because our elections are really, they're down to the wire. We're talking about like 1% to 2% difference in the population. And so the MAGA diehards who are not going to be convinced by this stuff are still not going to be convinced by it. And so those votes are going to be reliable for Trump and Republicans. But the 1% to 5% of the American public who were on the fence, who are now pushed to one side because of this, like maybe that could make a difference. I'm a little nervous about the way that the Kash Patel FBI has potentially been monkeying with the data and taking out Republican names and highlighting or putting in Democratic names. Like, it's it's concerning. It's wildly concerning that we no longer have an independent Department of Justice. All right, Justin Taylor says, why vote for a Democrat while AIPAC is still in charge of our politicians? So Justin Taylor, if you take it on the net, which party is more doing the bidding of AIPAC and the Netanyahu government in Israel? It's not even close. It is the Republican Party by a fucking mile. And so I believe in voting for better over worse. There are more politicians in the Democratic Party standing up to Netanyahu and standing up to AIPAC than there are in the Republican Party. So if you vote for a Democrat for senator or for House seats in the government, and that one Democrat takes money from AIPAC or still votes to send money weapons to Israel, it still helps all of the Democrats who are standing up to AIPAC and who are standing up to Netanyahu because it increases their majority in Congress. All right, Jarrett is right about AIPAC. Thank you, InfoWarrior. Appreciate that. John G. Efficient says Charlie Kirk was shot in the neck. I have not seen any substantive data on that. This apparently happened while I was streaming, and all I know is that people in the chat are saying that it is a thing that happened. I have not been shy about how big of a piece of shit Charlie Kirk is, but I also do not condone any kind of violence, any sort of like extrajudicial murders or assassinations or anything like that. So yeah, yeah, I don't condone that sort of thing if it did indeed happen. Alrighty, let's see here. Justin Taylor says it doesn't. You're still giving them what they want. Americans first. FDTFJB. I don't know what those mean. Justin Taylor, what exactly do you think I said that was inaccurate, Justin Taylor? Let's see here. Ryan says I can't say I hope he's okay. I mean, I just don't think that people should be shooting people. That's all I can say about that. InfoWarrior says large crowd from the distance. He was shot. All right, again, guys, let's not, until we can confirm it, let's not start spreading misinformation around everybody. Abdul Kaderi says, why Trump want to change America that has been great for hundreds of years and respected? Now nobody cares. I mean, it's worse than nobody cares. Now everybody hates us. We are in a trade war, America versus everybody, and it's weird how we are losing that trade war. The fact that we decided to start a trade war with everybody against us. Let's see here. Justin Taylor says, still giving Israel what they want is still wrong. They've been committing genocide since 1946. Justin Taylor, how are we going to stop Netanyahu and AIPAC by letting Republicans win elections? Tell me that. Because this was the argument that I heard going into the 2024 election, and all of the G-Side Joe and Never Kamala people because of Gaza, they got their wish. Now it is not only Trump in the White House, but it is the Republicans' majority in Congress. And the people in Palestine are more fucked than they were before. And the neighboring countries as well, because now Netanyahu is fucking emboldened to fucking attack half a dozen other nations to his neighbors, How is this helping, Justin? How is what you are doing helping? Maybe if we had done what I said and elected Democrats, we would be pushing back against the Netanyahu government. Maybe they would be thinking, oh, maybe we can't just go ahead and bomb fucking Qatar and Iran and shit like that. Justin Taylor says, I'm not saying I want Republicans. We need to refresh the tree of democracy. Justin Taylor, the best way to do that is to replace the Democrats, not to start a brand new political party that has zero name ID, zero infrastructure, zero support throughout all of these 50 states with the 330 million people that fucking live here, Justin. All right. If you want to argue for replacing certain Democrats in the primary and then voting for them, I'm on board, man. That's my project too. But if that Democrat doesn't win that primary, it is still essential to vote for that Democrat in the general election because a Republican will be worse, Justin. Alrighty. Danielle says Trump's letter for the guy with the island. How do we know it was actually made back then and not photoshopped? Because they physically have the book. And so yeah, it is impossible that this was created decades ago and then buried and then just brought out now to take down the Trump administration. It is how could we have predicted that we would be here 30 years ago when that book of letters was created? All right, Digital Foods, good to see you again. Says, if we don't support war in the Middle East, how do we end the world and make Jesus come back? Yeah, that's an excellent point, Digital Foods. There are some Christian extremists in our government who believe in empowering Israel because they believe it'll bring about the rapture and they can get fucking zooted up to heaven or whatever. Yeah, guys, that should be reason alone to never vote for Republicans again, Thank you, Emotional Damage. I appreciate you. Trump is your daddy says, Democrats, I had nothing factual. Trump is your daddy. You're never going to believe this, but I do not believe that you are here in good faith, just based on the fact that you have no fucking avatar. Right. Skate the Grateful says, Charlie Kirk was just shot at a college. He was doing a rally. I'm starting to think this might be a real thing, guys. But yeah, I just want to caution everybody. I know everybody's talking about this. Everybody's saying it's a real thing. But just be cautious and make sure you're not getting your news off of social media, guys. Is there any information about how he's doing? Is there any information about if he is, if he is in critical care or coming out of it or what? Right. So the Guardian has reported it. Okay. Yeah, I don't condone any kind of violence, guys. So if you're the kind of person that hears me talking about all these fucking pieces of shit like Charlie Kirk or Ben Shapiro or anything like that, know that I do not want you to do any violence against them. And when I talk about the billionaire class and elected Republicans, I do not want you to do violence. I do not want you to do violence. I do not want you to do any property damage. There are better ways to take power back than violence. So yeah, any update on how Charlie Kirk is doing? Badger75 says, how much evidence connecting Trump and Mr. E will it take for MAGA to wake up? There's no amount of evidence. There are all these cognitive dissonances that people do to protect their priors, where it actually causes people physical pain to recognize that they have been believing something that is inaccurate. And so yeah, these people will protect their ego and their identity at all costs. Alrighty, let's see here. Emotional damage says no revolution. I mean, I'm down for a revolution, but doesn't have to be violent. Doesn't have to include property damage. We can do nonviolent resistance. There was a guy, I think his name was Martin Luther King Jr. There's also another dude named Gandhi, I think, who were kind of about that, and those guys were pretty successful. So, let's see here. Okay. Carmine says he could have been shot like Trump was shot, so let's wait till the proper authorities handle it. Yeah, it could be sus as well, the same way that the Trump thing was sus. Alrighty, let's see here. Nick Costa says, "What can politicians do to win back any of us?" Nick Costa. I'm going to say something controversial, Nick. Are you still here? Let me know in the comments if you're still here, Nick. But I do have a comment for you. So, if there are two politicians, and one of them is like literally shitting on your head, and the other politician is telling that guy to stop shitting on your head, do you really need the guy who is trying to stop the dude from shitting on your head to sell you on his agenda? I don't necessarily think, it's obviously everybody's responsibility, including the politicians themselves, to convince people to vote for them and to communicate why, the country is the way it is and what the Trump administration is doing and how their platform can be more beneficial to them. But in our own self-interest, like, we should not have to wait for them to sell us on themselves. We should all be aware of how Republicans and the billionaire class and the Trump administration are fucking us all over. And so we should be the ones doing the work of unelecting them and replacing them with Democrats instead. So yeah, I mean, there are very valid criticisms that we can make of the way that the Democratic Party operates and of their messaging strategies. But I also think that we need to recognize the disadvantages, the structural disadvantages of the Democratic Party, and recognize how much harder it is to do their job than the Republican politician's job. And when we recognize that, we maybe will take it upon ourselves to do some of that work as well, because it is only through all of us doing that work that we get out of this, Brandon Anon says, your argument seems to be, well, they are both shifting on your head, but choose the smaller shit. That's literally not what I said, Brandon. They're not both shitting on your head. One of them is shitting on your head, and one of them is stopping them from shitting on your head. Emotional damage says, midterms legit. We need people watching the polls. 100% emotional damage. The Republican Party, Trump administration, they're going to try to fuck with the midterm elections. And so we have the power to stop them fucking with it, though. We just all have to do the work to stop it. It has to be a massive effort. Alrighty, let's see here. It's the Rocketeer says, KNX and CBS officially reporting it now. CBS, not the pharmacy. Yeah, I mean, it seems like it really happened. But let's find out. Let's find out how he's doing. The Gray Area Podcast says, yeah, because the 2016 polls were spot on. That's a really weird thing to say. Nobody's really talking about the value of polls over here to Gray Area Podcast. Greggy Poo says, we need to force Gump them, march from California to DC, and the wave get bigger as it gets to DC. I like that idea, but I also kind of like the way that No Kings is doing it, where you don't have to walk across the country. You can just go to a massive protest in your city or your state, Yeah, another No Kings protest is coming up, by the way, everybody. So if you are down with that, you should all go to the protest on October 18th is the next big No Kings protest. Malcolm Vinson says, would you describe yourself as a capitalist? I would not, but I also would not describe myself as a communist or a socialist. I believe in a mixed system, like they have in Norway and Sweden and Canada. We have a little bit too much capitalism here in this country, not enough communism and socialism. We do have some communism and socialism, just not enough. in my opinion. Emotional Damage says, what state are you in? I'm in California. Sauce GP says, what about me, sir? What about you? Abdul Kaderi says, once Bill Clinton said that Democrats create more jobs than Republicans, it is true. I mean, it's not that he said it that it became true. It's that it was true, and he pointed it out, you know? Let's see here. Sauce GP says, do you agree crypto is important for the future of the world economy? I haven't seen any use cases for crypto that solves any of the problems with our world economy other than doing crimes and doing corruption. Like, that seems to be the main use case for crypto right now. Meme coins, rug pulls, the fucking Trump crypto coin, like, it's just all grift and corruption and crimes. But, you know, I'm open to arguments that it is. Right now, crypto is dumb, and it's not working, and it is a massive drain on our electrical grid. That and AI and the Trump administration stupidly ending green energy projects for no fucking reason are rapidly increasing Americans' energy costs, and it's going to create more brownouts and blackouts. It's going to be like we're all living in Texas with their shitty fucking grid, you know? Right, let's see here. Sauce GP, stop spamming the comments. Let's see here. Carmine says, do you think it's weird the only poll they have ever brought up is Demapproval and party size? Is that what you're doing there? I mean, I don't think it's weird. I think we both know what's going on there, Carmine. I think we both know what the vibe is. Alrighty, let's see here. Sauce GP says I wasn't trying to spam. Sorry, that's okay. But yeah, you know, you haven't said anything about the value of crypto. You're only saying that it has value. Like, can you prove that it has value? Alowary 34 says, did you hear about Charlie Kirk? Well, yeah, we've all been chatting about it here in the stream, but we don't know how he's doing, and you know, I'm curious. Somebody mentioned the Trump assassination attempt and how weird and sus that looked, and so now I'm wondering about that myself. You know. EXO says, I like how you say alrighty every time you switch topics. Thank you, EXO. I appreciate that. It's just one of my ticks for making sure that the stream is consistent and people are entertained. You know, Brandon Anon says, you have ignored my APAC comment 3 times now. How are Dems better when the majority are on the take? The majority is not on the take. Half of the Democrats in the Senate voted to stop sending money and weapons to Israel. Also, AIPAC is a massive organization, so taking money from AIPAC doesn't necessarily mean that you're in the pocket of the Netanyahu government. AIPAC has a lot of power, and do you wish for the Democratic Party to have a blanket ban on taking AIPAC money, knowing that that will put them at a financial disadvantage against Republicans who will be worse for everybody, including the people of Palestine? Answer me that, Brandon. Answer me that. So you think that it's better for Democrats to stop taking AIPAC money, even if it means Republicans will win more seats in power? SRT Tom says, but didn't someone pass away from the quote-unquote fake assassination? Yeah, somebody did. I'm not going on the record and saying that the Trump assassination was staged. I'm just saying there were some really sus things about it, but I do not believe it is productive to promote things that you cannot prove. I think it's completely fine to recognize how many things were sus about that, but also acknowledging, like, but it does seem like it was a real thing, you know. So we'll see. We'll have to see about the Charlie Kirk thing. Trenton Bridges says, do you think Russia will actually attack Poland, not just unarmed drones? I mean, that's the kind of prediction that I don't really feel comfortable making. Trenton Bridges, I believe that Putin is not stopping. He is only ramping things up. And the Trump administration keeps on saying that they're going to stand up to Putin and for there to be consequences for Putin based on what he's doing, and then not delivering on those, and then rolling out the red carpet for Putin in Alaska and doing a fucking flyover, shit like that. So, yeah, you know, it seems as though Putin is just doing whatever the fuck he wants, and with nobody in America to stop him, like, you know, why not, you know? Alrighty, Andy Johnson says, what do you think about the rift between liberals and leftists? I think it's dumb. I think that anybody that wants to fight with me from within the left, I'm just like, let's stop fighting, man. Like, can we agree that every Republican is worse and that we need to get rid of, we need to unelect every single Republican and replace them with better people? And if there are Democrats that you don't like, we can primary them together and get better Democrats. But if those better Democrats don't win, it's still better to have a Democrat in that seat than a Republican in that seat, you know? I also think that because the information sphere is largely manipulated by the billionaire class, both with bots and AI and even paid influencers who are there to spread misinformation about how, you know, liberals are worse than leftists or leftists are worse than liberals or whatever. They are instigating fights the way that Russia was instigating fights between Muslims and anti-Muslim communities in Texas. And so I think that if you are somebody who is engaged in that kind of, rhetoric, where we're just sort of like a circular firing squad demanding purity tests and shit like that, I think you should stop it. And if somebody is trying to start a fight with you, be they MAGA or a different flavor of Democrat that you don't like, don't take the bait, you know, and just be like, hey, I'm not here to fight with you. I am just here to talk about what's really going on, and let's all band together. Let's all form a coalition to unelect every single Republican, because I think we can all agree that they're worse. Fogwar Productions says Charlie Kirk just got here in Utah. Yeah, it has been all over the chat, my guy, and I cannot believe it. And I want to know. I want to know how he's doing. I want to get an update on his health. Brandon Anon says, AKA take the smaller shit. Again, Brandon, that's your thing and not mine. And I'm getting kind of annoyed with you. So either ask a question or leave. All right. JP12X Real says, Russia is using mercenaries now. I don't think they start another conflict with you while Ukraine continues. But on the other hand, Putin wants a legacy. Yeah, I mean, if he's getting fresh soldiers from North Korea, if he's getting, if he's currently working with India to shore up, sales of his oil reserves and stuff like that, like does he have the resources to expand his war into a second country? He might. I don't know. I think that what you say there is it rings accurate, JP. But again, I don't have that information. Nobody is qualified to make that prediction, I don't think. Let's see here. It's the Rocketeer says, I'm loving the anti-purity test movement, though. Me too, it's the Rocketeer. Let's be part of it. Brandon On says, I have been asking plenty of questions, just keep giving a shallow answer and brushing them off. I guess deal with it, because this is my live stream and I'm allowed to do what I want. Reviews with Faye Renee says, who benefits from shooting Charlie? I mean, if he survives, then he benefits, because he gets to be, you know, a Christ-like martyr figure who the left is trying to murder, and it just feeds into the left is so violent narrative, where a MAGA person shot and killed like 3 Democratic state senators in Minnesota, I think, and then we completely moved on from that news cycle, I guess. This is why I don't condone violence, is because it just becomes a tit for tat, who's the worst offender, who's the most violent political party people, you know? Where one side's politicians are actively encouraging their followers to be violent, the other side is trying to stop the violence. So yeah, again, I will come down on, you know, the Republican Party is worse on this, but that nobody should do violence, regardless of if you are on the left or on the right. Alrighty, BB Fan says, what do you think of the ship sunk from Venezuela? It's fucking insane, you know? I know that there are some people who are saying that there were drugs on the boat. There are other people who are saying it's unlikely that there were drugs on the boat based on where it took off from and based on the shape of the boat and how many people were on the boat. I don't really care about that. It was wrong either way. Like, America does not just get to assassinate anybody that they want. You know, these are fucking citizens of Venezuela who we just became fucking Judge Dredd for. Just judge, jury, and executioner all in one. We looked at them. We provided zero evidence that they were doing anything to America. And we were just like, yep, nope, sorry, you're fucking murdered. Goodbye. It's fucking insane. The government that is emboldened to do that is a government that is fine with doing anything to any one of us. Alrighty, let's see here. Abdul Kaderi says, we are sending billions of dollars to Israel, and they invest 5% of that to buy our politicians. Yeah, that's pretty funny, Abdul. Right. Kitschy to Swifty says, what do you think about the jobs revision of 900,000 fewer jobs from last year? I mean, I have no reason to doubt those numbers. Whether it happened during the Biden administration or the Trump administration, it is a concern that the job market, that unemployment is rising. And I think that it is instructive that the Trump administration has done exactly zero to reverse that trend. And by all accounts, they are accelerating it by increasing unemployment, increasing the cost of living crisis, decreasing supply of out-of-country goods and resources. Like, yeah, it is the the largest self-own fucking, losing from a head that potentially in world history. Alrighty, Theris, yeah, we saw, man. That's fucking bananas. And again, I don't condone violence. Nobody should be doing shit like that. War Garble says if Dems stop taking APAC funds, it stops only 126,000 average per cycle for only 135 candidates. I don't think that it is a meaningless amount. War Garble. So here's my theory of the case, War Garble, and let me know what you think about this. I think it's fine for Democrats to take corporate money, APAC money, billionaire money, so that they can get in office and pass legislation to get money out of politics. They have done it in the past. They want to do it in the future. It's part of their platform. The Republican Party, by contrast, has actively deconstructed campaign finance regulations in ways that make bribery, corruption, super PAC, unlimited super PAC donations easier, more legal, and harder to find, and harder to spot when it is illegal. I understand that that's not cool for people, and that there are certain politicians who can get away with eschewing all of those political donations, like AOC, like Mamdani, like Bernie Sanders. But when we unilaterally disarm and allow the Republican Party, who is already the beneficiary of 75% of all billionaire political donations, we are putting ourselves at such a disadvantage, and the Democratic Party is already suffering from so many systemic disadvantages. Like, why add another one on top of that? Gerrymandering, the Senate map, the information environment, the Electoral College, the fact that the Republican philosophy of destroying the government and pointing out when they do shitty things as an example of why government is bad is an easier thing to do than the Democratic platform of trying to build things and fix things. Yeah, it's just so easy for Democrats to be, the tiniest bit of not perfect that everybody thinks that they're worthless. Democrats never get any credit. Republicans never get any blame. The Democratic Party can never be good enough. The Republican Party can never be bad enough. Why are we why are we putting another weight on their shoulders? Badger75 says Trump has crypto. Who cares about donors? That's what I'm saying too, my guy. Kitchi to Swifty says not enough money is not the reason the Democrats are losing. They're losing because they stink. That is inaccurate, Kitchi to Swifty. I don't think they stink, and I don't think that they're losing because they stink. I have other theories about that, Kitchi to Swifty, but if you would like me to go into more detail on that, I happily will. But I also don't like engaging with people who are just here to confirm their priors. Adaro says, let me request up. I have a great question. Put it in the comments, Adaro. I only have people up at certain very, very specific times, and it is up to my discretion, and I never predict it, and I don't guarantee that 1 or 5 will happen during any live stream. It's just luck of the draw. BB Fan says, does it make sense for Dems to block the budget at the end of the month? I think so, but I think people need to recognize that it's not an easy decision, and that both decisions, whether to fund the government or not, are fraught. And what is the best of two bad decisions? It's up for discussion, And so if anybody tries to tell you, regardless of what happens, if the Democrats fund the government, it wasn't that they folded; it was that it was a hard decision. And if the Democrats let the government shut down, it wasn't that they don't give a shit about the American people and how many people are going to get hurt because of the shutdown. That was what they thought would be the better of two really bad decisions. Gabe says that Charlie Kirk has been unalived. Can anybody confirm that? JP says Russia is a gas station. They don't have the resources, but other nations may get involved anyway. I mean, yeah, that was, he's there. He's in league with North Korea. He's in league with India now, JP, so the Democratic Party also has the disadvantage of being run by 100-year-olds. I mean, it's not like the Republican Party is doing all that much better as far as like being a party of, fucking octogenarians. I don't know who's winning the war of infusing more young talent into their political parties, but it's got to be a close game. Let's see here. Yeah, we're trying to find out how Charlie Kirk is doing, though. Gabe says he was killed, but we do not know what is accurate if that is accurate or not. Brandon Anon says, "What are Dems polling at right now?" I don't know, but Republicans aren't polling all that much better, if better at all. Atero says, "Would you vote for a 10-to-1 wage gap ratio?" I mean, we're talking about like the difference between what the person who owns the company makes versus what the person doing the work makes. 100%. Because right now it's like, what is it, like 500-to-1 or some shit like that? Alrighty. Kitschy to Swifty says, "You don't think that Kamala was a bad candidate? She had zero productive policies." I disagree with that entirely. Kitschy to Swifty. She was going to increase, housing production. She was going to go after price gougers. She was going to continue the Bidenomics of trying to infuse more capital into the lower and middle class and working class Americans. She was going to continue to give power to the unions. Even just continuing the Biden era policies, even just keeping Lena Khan on at the Federal Trade Commission would have been a productive policy. So I'm not really sure what you're referring to there. You know, it kind of sounds like you're just kind of doing a knee jerk Dems are bad kind of argument, because it really does not. It really doesn't track with the data that is out there. Right. So far we do not have confirmation that he is officially unalived. We'll have to wait and see, I guess. South Fork Greg says, "Do you think Kamala was actually going to keep good on her promises? Because most politicians lie." So here's the thing. There's a difference between a politician not doing the thing that they said they were going to do and a politician trying and being stopped by the Republican Party, other people in the Democratic Party, the billionaire class, industry, state governments, regardless. Barack Obama signed an executive order to shut down Guantanamo Bay, and it was not his fault that every state in America fought against that, even Democratic states, I do believe that she would have attempted to go through with her platform, because that's what you do, and the Republican Party had a platform called Project 2025, and they're doing their platform. I don't know why we assume that Democrats are lying about doing the good things they're promising on doing, and Republicans are lying about not doing the bad things that they say that they're going to do. Like, how much more can we unfairly judge these two political parties, where the Democrats are lying about saying they're going to do things, and the Republicans are lying about saying they're going to do bad things? Like, can we lower the bar any more for the Republicans and raise it any more for the Democrats? Alrighty, let's see here. All right, we're at an hour. I've got a very important appointment at 1:30 p.m., so I'm going to have to dip out of here. South Fork Greg says both sides lie, which is unfortunate. It is, but Republicans lie more. There's a lot of data on this, and right-wing media lies more. There's a lot of data on that too, South Fork Greg. Everybody, thank you for being here. Thank you for the gifts and the likes and the shares. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. Let's all keep an eye on this Charlie Kirk situation, and again, let's not be violent people, and let's not condone violence when it happens. What else? If you want to support the show financially, you can, but you don't have to. You can join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Link is in my bio. You can also buy things from my store on my website. Link is in the bio, and you can send gifts and subscribe on TikTok and Twitch and YouTube and everything. Let's see here. What else? DMs are open. If anything ever comes up that you want clarity on, or if you want help getting involved, I hope that you guys will use me as a resource for both figuring out what's going on in politics, clearing any issues up that you might have, but also for getting involved and for getting directed to organizations that you can join, because these places, they need bodies. Indivisible, Run for Something, Vote Save America, they need people. We need people, guys. We all do. And so be part of the work, be part of the solution, use me as a resource, fucking use me up, because if it feels this good getting used, then you just keep on using me until you use me up. That's for you, JP. All right, go to my Discord. Excellent resources on the Discord, recommendations for podcasts, for books, and for activism and volunteer work that you can do. And just please, everybody, do the work. Don't be violent. Be good to each other. We need people doing this work. We need people recruiting other people to do the work. Don't do violence. Again, do not do violence. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye, 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 goodbye.